Good afternoon, fight fans. Welcome to another episode of Sparring Sessions Live. My name is JMC Asat at ngayong hapon, makakasama natin the Dean Quinito Henson himself. Pag-uusapan natin ng konti yung kakatapos na laban ni Mark Magsayo versus Gary Russell Jr. Pupuntahan rin natin yung kanyang supposed mandatory against Ray Vargas. Other than that, we'll go ahead and talk about Jerwin Ancajas' next fight. And ano na nga ba, hingi na rin tayo ng update sa supposed mandatory defense ni Janriel Casimero. Okay? So, samahan ninyo kami. Alright, Dean Quinito Henson, first of all, good afternoon and welcome back dito sa Sparring Sessions Live. Dean, we already know what happened over the weekend. This last Sunday, we actually got ourselves our 5th world champion from the Philippines in Mark Magsayo. He won via majority decision against a tough Gary Russell Jr. Dean Quinito, any thoughts regarding that fight?
Well, unang-una, maraming salamat, JM, sa invitation mo. At magandang hapon ho sa lahat ng mga boxing fans all over the country, all over the world. Yes, it was a very exhilarating feeling nung nakita natin nanalo si Mark Magsayo over Gary Russell Jr. I just thought that it was a travesty that it was a majority decision lamang, no? Because in my unofficial scorecard, I had him winning 8 rounds to 4 rounds for Russell. No? So, I was just so surprised that it was very close. Lynn Carter of Philadelphia, she is a female and she has officiated. In fact, she's the first female judge to work in a WBA and a WBA and WBO world title fight. She's a veteran of over 700 fights. I was just so surprised that she scored it a draw. And I was looking at her scorecard, and I was surprised also from the 3rd to the 9th round. She gave 5 out of the 6 rounds to Russell. Ewan ko lang kung anong pinanunood na laban niya, but hindi siguro yung laban na ginanap dun sa Atlantic City, New Jersey. I was a little dismayed that it was a majority decision because it robbed Magsayo of a well-deserved convincing victory. Kausap ko din si Sean Gibbons, he felt the same way. The 2 other judges had it 115 to 113, meaning to say close din, no, ang laban sa kanilang mga mata. But if you were to look at the punch stats, makikita mo yung glaring disparity. Of course, you score a fight round after round. So, on an accumulated basis, you may have a lot more punches than the other. But maybe in some rounds, there were close rounds that could have gone the other way. But ito, masyadong malayo. Masyadong malayo. It was 150 punches landed by Magsayo compared to 69 for Russell. And Russell hardly threw the jab, which he's known for. And it was just it was a case of 3 judges, I felt, trying to save a situation for Russell, trying to avoid a great escape by Russell, and they ran out of rounds. In fact, round number 12 in all 3 judges' scorecards, they scored it all for Russell. And but if you were to examine the scorecard, all 3 judges concurred in giving 5 rounds unanimously to Magsayo, and only 3 rounds were unanimous for Russell. So even then, parang meron ka ng indikasyon na it shouldn't have been a close fight. It should have been a runaway for Mark Magsayo.
Didn't you think before the fight sinabi ni Gary Russell Jr. that he has an injury, going into that bout, no? And to his credits, we all know this guy for his jabs. Half of his knockouts came from landing his right hook, no? So talagang kailangan niya yung kanang kamay niya. Now, from round 4, bumato lang siya ng jab twice after he hurt his right shoulder. The next round, isa. Tapos po, from round 6 to round 12, hindi na siya bumato at all. Do you think na maybe, just maybe, binibigyan siya ng credit nung 3 judges for fighting on despite having a shoulder injury?
That should not be in the equation at all. To give a fighter the benefit of the doubt because meron siyang iniindang injury, I don't think that should be uh, at all in the notion of a judge. You score, they fight according to how you see every round, not according to what you think or how or what the condition is of the fighter. No? As far as his injury is concerned, ito lang masasabi ko at sinabi din sa akin ni Mark, in the first 3 rounds, wala siya nakitang parang injury. But in the 4th round, nung tinamaan niya yung right shoulder ni Gary Russell, medyo sumigaw, nasaktan. So,
We saw that.
you know, some people are saying, dapat siguro hindi na tinuloy ni Russell yung laban. Parang hindi yata maganda na tinuloy niya at he just fought for the money. So are you also going to say that to Manny Pacquiao? As you know, Manny Pacquiao had a shoulder injury prior to the fight against Floyd Mayweather. Tinuloy niya yung laban. Dapat ba nag-withdraw si Pacquiao sa laban na yon? Hindi. You feel that you have a tolerance for pain, and I'm just assuming that talagang may injury si Russell because nagduda ako sa mga sinasabi ni Russell nung inungkat niya yung sinabi niyang I had this shoulder problem even before the 2008 Beijing Olympics. What? Before the Olympics? That's 14 years ago. You mean to say 14 years he had that shoulder problem and only now he complained? Ano ba yan? You know, that's, I think, taking it a little exaggerated. Tama na yung mga excuses. I felt that Russell was not totally prepared for this fight. First of all, his father wasn't really with him during training camp because of his father's health problems. No? Pangalawa, yung indication, nung tumuntong siya sa scales in the weigh-in, tumimbang siya ng 1/2 over.
Yeah.
Now, if you're really in condition, kung binabantayan mo ang timbang mo, dapat sa unang-unang tungtong mo, nakuha mo na yung weight. So, this guy's full of excuses. As Sean Gibbons told me, he's a lot of baloney. Okay? So, hindi ako naniniwala sa mga sinasabi ni Russell. Talo siya. No? Now, baka meron siyang kutob sa loob niya na sa laban na ito, mukhang matatalo siya because wala siya sa kondisyon because si Magsayo, nakita niya siguro sa mga tape o sa mga film na mukhang confident, mukhang he feels ready to win the championship. And if you also notice in the weigh-in, pakatapos sila nag-weigh-in, nagharapan sila, Magsayo was full of confidence, full of energy. Tapos si Russell, parang matamlay parang listless. Para talaga nahirapan na kumuha ng timbang. And, you know, if he was 1/2 pound over the limit, he was given 1 hour to make the weight, which he did. He lost 1 pound in 1 hour. Kung pigang-piga ka na, losing even 1/2 pound in 1 hour is a struggle. 1 pound is a challenge. And for Russell, I just thought that wala siya sa kondisyon. And he knew it. So even before the fight, gumawa na siya ng kwento na meron siyang injury, na hindi naman niya sinabi kung ano yung injury niya. You know, if I were a fighter na talagang meron akong injury, ba't ko sasabihin before the fight? Ba't ko sasabihin? Ano, para malaman ng kalaban mo na meron kang injury? Hahanapin kung saan yung lugar sa parte ng katawan mo na tatamaan niya? Ano yan? Kalokohan Kalokohan. I don't think Manny Pacquiao before his fight with Mayweather, before the fight, said that, you know, I have a shoulder injury. I might not be 100%. Wala No fighter will do that. And this guy, Gary Russell, I have lost total respect for someone like him. You know, they call him Mr. Gary Russell. I think you should eliminate Mr. from now on. And maybe you can call him something else, but certainly not Mr. He doesn't deserve respect. He was the longest reigning world boxing champion before losing his title to Magsayo, and he was supposed to be, you know, a man who demanded respect, no? Pero wala nakita ko na yan in the 2018 Beijing Olympics. You know, if you're an Olympian, you prepare for the Olympics like you've never prepared before. Bakit? Because you're representing your country. Dapat nasa 100% kondisyon ka. Ano nangyari kay Russell? All the way from the US, he flew to Beijing to participate in the Olympics. Hindi man lang nakatungtong sa sa scales for the first weigh-in. And as you know, in the Olympics, every time you have a fight, you have to weigh in the morning.
Yeah.
And yung fights halos hindi naman consecutive days, pero one day, after maybe 2 days, or after 3 days, you fight again. but you have to maintain your weight because you weigh in every morning of your fight. And what happened to Russell? He was severely dehydrated for his first weigh-in. He couldn't get out of his room. He didn't even attend the weigh-in. So what did he do? Tinapon niya yung pagkakataon to be able to fight for his country in the Olympics. A ticket that should have gone to somebody else. I mean, if he's going to throw away the opportunity by being out of condition for the Olympics, nakakahiya. Yan ang gusto kong sabihin. Gary Russell, I have lost my total respect for someone like him.
Everything he
Dapat
said,
also his beard.
well, ginamit tata ni Mark Magsayo din yung kanyang beard no, for target practice Kasi di ba hindi niya sabi ni Manny before kay Antonio Margarito, no, kasi parang magkaroon doon ng dispute na sabi sa commission, he might have to shave his beard. Sabi ni Manny, leave it there. I want to use it for my target, no? Anyway,
yes, Bronner was the one with a beard, and they said that it wasn't fair for someone to have that kind of a cushion. Because if you have a very thick beard, that no matter what you say, it can cushion a punch somehow. So Bronner had to shave, but they didn't do it. They didn't order it to Russell. Wala. I just felt that Russell deserved to lose. At dapat he should have just shut up after the fight. Na wala na siyang sinabi.
Everything said and considered, Dean Quinito, before we go to the supposed mandatory of Mark Magsayo against Ray Vargas, do you think he really just underestimated Mark Magsayo going into this fight?
No, I don't think so. I thought Gary Russell knew that he was up against a tough opponent, which was the reason why before the fight, he already imagined an injury and was ready with an excuse that if in case he lost, he would be able to come out in the open and say, kasi meron akong injury In fact, yung nga nun, sa fourth round, I just fought one-armed. But, to the credit of the boxer, Gary Russell, and, he is a man who is talented. I just think that up here, he doesn't have it all. I just felt that despite the fact that he had just one arm to fight with starting the fourth round after he got hurt, he was able to connect with some punches. Yeah. And I thought Magsayo strayed from his fight plan. I mean, the fight plan was to be able to box, not just brawl, to be able to land combinations and to use movement, head movement, and as he came charging inside the attack zone of Russell, dapat gumagalaw siya, no? Because you can't be a standing target for Gary Russell. And I gave Russell the 8th, the 9th round. I also gave him 2 more rounds, and I just felt that Magsayo did not execute his fight plan as he should have. Kasi he felt kasi, and this was confirmed by Magsayo himself, no, na feeling niya ready to go si Russell, no? So pinabayaan niya yung fight plan na ginawa ni Freddie Roach para sa kanya, and he went for a one-punch knockout. He wanted to go for the home run. So doon siya tinumaan. And even against a one-armed fighter, you have to respect Russell for that fighting ability. Not because of his discipline. You don't respect him also because of the way he thinks and his philosophy. But I felt that in this fight, Magsayo learned a lot. And he should be a better fighter if he understands what he did wrong in the fight. I think number 1, his defense. His defense has to improve 100%. If he's going up against some tough opposition later on. No? I think number 2, he should stay focused. So, no matter what, sabi sa akin ni Magsayo, nanggigil siya eh. Kanya medyo umatras siya sa fight plan nila and nakakuha to yun ng mga rounds si Russell. So, that's number 2. He's got to be able to stay focused. And number 3, he can't be a unidimensional fighter. Meaning to say, now that he's the world champion, he's got to be unpredictable, he's got to be multidimensional, and he's got to be able to fight smartly. Those are the things that I feel that yung mga takeaways from that fight against Gary Russell. I think Mark Magsayo will be a much better fighter if he learned the lessons from this fight against Russell.
And definitely, Mark Magsayo, if I look at this fighter, Dean Quinito, marami pa nga i-improve because that means that he's not at his prime, not at his peak yet. So, ibig sabihin, good news about it, marami pang igagaling. Marami pang igagaling yung Mark
Yeah,
Magsayo when you
definitely.
actually
I
see
thought
close.
in the early rounds of that fight, maganda yung patama niya ng kanyang uppercut.
Yeah.
Medyo in the middle of the fight towards the end, nawala na yung kanyang uppercut because he was going for the big bomb. He was going for the for the right hook or the right straight. The same punches that he threw when he beat Julio Ceja. Nakalimutan na niya yung kanyang uppercut, and again, he's got to stay focused. You have to know what you have to do. And nandiyan naman si Freddie Roach, nandiyan din si Marvin Somodio was acting as a translator. So he had good minds in his corner. He's got to listen. He's got to listen to those good minds. Right now, ang dami niyang sinasabi, no, si Mark. And I praise him for his victory, and he deserves to celebrate and enjoy the moment. But he's now talking about unification. He's talking about finding the big names in the division. Sandali, take it step by step. I thought, okay, he deserved to win the featherweight championship over Russell, but this division is loaded with very, very tough opposition. If you're talking unification, it's going to be difficult to beat someone like Emmanuel Navarrete, whom you all know is undefeated and very, very tough. It's difficult to fight even the number one contender, Ray Vargas, the former WBC super bantamweight champion, also undefeated. Maybe a little easier to beat the IBF champion, Kiko Martinez of Spain, but he's got a defense against Conlan in March. And then if you look at the WBA, there's Leo Santa Cruz and Lei Wood. Lei Wood is fighting against Conlan. No, Kiko Martinez is fighting somebody else in defense. No, but Lei Wood against Conlan is happening in March in the UK, and that's for the regular WBA championship. So, mamimili sa Magsayo ngayon, no, kung sino yung pwede niyang labanan if he wants to unify. And maybe the winner of Lei Conlan might be a good opponent for him because hindi masyadong mabibigat, no, yung dalawa na yun, whoever wins. But I don't know, you mentioned about mandatory against Ray Vargas. I haven't seen any ruling from the WBC that will order Magsayo to make a mandatory in his first defense. Have you? I haven't seen it.
Actually, regarding that din dito kasi sa WBC, they have a weekly meeting with the local media sa Mexico, di ba? So they have not, hindi pa nila nilabas yung order, but through a WBC official representative, they actually told during that meeting this past Tuesday na they will honor Ray Vargas nga as the mandatory because he's been the number one contender, di ba?
Yes.
And I believe Magsayo was number 3 or number 4 when he got the shot for Gary Russell. He's supposed to be fighting Gary Russell himself kasi siya nga yung number 1. But by beating Julio Ceja, Mark was able to catapult himself to the mandatory challenger. He was able to put himself as the contender. So sabi po ng WBC dun sa weekly meeting nila with the local Mexican media, yun nga, it's time that they order a mandatory challenger for the champion. Even though again, Dean, just to clarify, hindi pa po na ilalabas ng WBC yun.
Okay.
It was just verbally.
Yeah, JM, there's no question Ray Vargas is the mandatory challenger at number 1. But it doesn't mean that the first defense of Magsayo will be a mandatory defense. It just says that Ray Vargas will be the mandatory when the time comes. So on February 8th, and this is something that has not been mentioned in any media. So this is the first time it's being mentioned in any media platform, JM. On February 8th, Mark Magsayo is going to Mexico City to receive the belt designed for him by the WBC, and he will be meeting with the President Sulaiman. Perhaps in that meeting, when he accepts the belt specifically made for him, there will be some discussion as to who and when will be his mandatory defense. I don't think it's going to be the first defense. I think the first defense will be probably anyone from the top 15 contenders. It's also possible that, as Sean Gibbons told me, that he could fight the winner of the upcoming fight between Lei Wood and Michael Conlan. And whoever wins in that fight will unify with Magsayo. That will be WBA and WBC.
We'll go ahead and see. Din Quinito, February 8, I'm sure kasi sabi mo nga, wala pa pong official announcement, wala pang official order ang
Mhm.
WBC. So we'll go ahead and find out. Thank you so much for that information, Din Quinito. February 8.
Yep.
So excited to see him get his own belt, no? Alam mo, Din Quinito, in this featherweight division, I've always felt and believed that outside of Emmanuel Navarrete, and Gary Russell Jr., si Mark Magsayo, he matches up very well naman do sa ibang mga fighters dito. I think he beats uh, Leo Santa Cruz, and I think he beats Kiko Martinez, as you've also said. But right now, if and when it happens, Din Quinito, itong laban niya supposedly against the number one contender, Ray Vargas, how do you see that fight going? How does he match up
Um,
against the number one contender?
it's going to be hard. I think if Ray Vargas is going to be his first challenger, I think I think it will be a very very difficult fight for Magsayo. No, I would not advise it at all. This guy is taller than him. He's 5'10" and a half. He's undefeated. He's got a 70.5 inch reach. And Magsayo, dehado siya in both counts. No, he's shorter and he has he's in height and he's also shorter in reach. Um, I think Vargas, is he reminds me of let me think, um, maybe a little bit of an Eric Morales, maybe a little bit of this fighter named Raul Perez, who was a bantamweight champion many years ago, also a Mexican. This guy is rangy, and it'll be very difficult for Mark to beat someone like him convincingly. It'll be a close fight. It'll be a close fight. Siguro kung magkatamaan, maybe that'll be an opportunity for Magsayo to display his power. As I said before the Russell fight, he had to have patience and perseverance. He had to have pace. He had to have patience, and he had to have power, and that's very important in Magsayo's scheme of things. So I wouldn't advise Vargas yet as an opponent. And Sean Gibbons agrees. Sean Gibbons says if you fight Navarrete or Vargas, it's almost like fighting the same fighter. Both will be very difficult. So inay muna natin, no? Yung paangat ng career ni Mark Magsayo. I think it's important that we find a worthy challenger, but someone who is beatable. And as Mark continues to gain confidence in his abilities.
Dean, sorry, I just have to, ask you this one time. What about Ray Vargas that makes you feel na he is going to be a very a tough matchup for Mark Magsayo? I mean, we know he's lanky, he's very good. The way
Yep.
he slips punches, no, ang galing nito. May jab, yung uppercut, the way he throws his hooks, no. So I get where you're coming from, why it's going to be a tough fight, but I want to hear it from you, Dean Quinito. What makes you say that this? Because for me, I think it's a 50-50 fight between him and Ray Vargas. No, I favored
Mhm.
Gary Russell over him. I would favor Emmanuel Navarrete over Mark Magsayo. But Ray Vargas,
Okay.
just in my opinion, I think it's going to be 50-50. I just want to get your thoughts about it. Why
Okay.
it's
Well,
going to
I
be a tough
wouldn't
one.
sell. I wouldn't sell Mark Magsayo short. Ray Vargas has a 35-0 record with 22 knockouts. What you like about him is that he's a boxer puncher. He knows when to box and he knows when to brawl, and he can do both very very well. He's someone who understands the fight game. He has experience, and he's been a world champion himself. In fact, he let go of the super bantamweight championship to be able to move up in weight. Um, he will be tested, however, whether the power that he had as a super bantamweight and even before that,
Yeah.
he can translate into the featherweight division. So that's a question mark. So I'm not saying it's going to be a 100% walk away for Vargas. I'm saying that it'll be a tough challenge for Magsayo. But I think if you look at the tapes of Raul Hibaro Perez back in the day, he was a world bantamweight championship. You will see a very very great similarity, and Perez also has been knocked out towards the latter part of his career. So um, it depends. Usually, when you're lanky and when you've got good range, and if you're built that way, you will be vulnerable to a big punch. It's almost like a a model. If you're a fighter who's lanky, ganon, medyo mahina ka sa panga. So I think he will be vulnerable. But Magsayo has to display his power. And he also has to fight very smart because this guy's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Vargas is not going to be an easy fight for him by a long shot. So again, my advice is the WBC is not ordering a mandatory as of yet. So let him make a voluntary defense, maybe a couple. Gary Russell wants a rematch. Pero sabi ni Sean Gibbons, yeah, he wants a rematch. How often does he fight? What? So let's wait until 2023 or 2024 for a rematch? Because it doesn't look like Russell's going to fight again this year. That's the way he is.
Yeah. Especially with his injury.
Right, yeah. By the way, kanina, I should have mentioned Kiko Martinez will be defending his championship against Josh Warrington of the UK.
Oh, okay.
So I think whoever wins that fight could also be a possibility for Mark Magsayo. Both of those fights, no, yung kay Martinez at saka yung kay Lee Wood, both of those fights will be in March. And of course, there's always Leo Santa Cruz, who I think would be maybe a better matchup for Mark Magsayo than Vargas. But those Mexican fighters are very, very unpredictable, and they're very, very talented. So the best of luck for Mark. I'm just hoping and I'm wishing, and I know it will happen. Marami siyang dapat natutunan sa laban against Russell because that should have been. I felt he could have knocked him out. I felt that if he didn't stray from his fight plan in the 8th round, unti-unti uubusin niya si Russell. Pero because he strayed from his fight plan and Magsayo wanted to land that home run punch, he allowed Russell to get a couple of rounds before the end of the fight. And if Magsayo had have taken the 8th round and the 9th round easily, then I think Russell would have just given up towards the end. Magsayo did say in the 10th round, nung tinamaan niya sabi niya, yung kaliwa niya na jab but I think it might have been a straight. Pero sabi niya, nung tinamaan niya si Russell in the 10th round, nakita niya naduling Naduling si Russell and nagroggy. So, I felt that if he had taken the 8th and 9th round, by that point, nung 10th round, nung tinamaan niya, nagroggy si Russell, baka bumagsak na lang yun Baka, he could have felt, well, this is a lost cause anyway. I might as well just end this fight now and not risk getting hurt anymore. So sayang ang pagkakataon. I felt that Magsayo could have knocked him out.
Yeah. Anyway, at the end of the day, Dean Quinito, what's important is we have a new world champion from the Philippines, and that's going to be Mark Magnifico Magsayo. Dean Quinito, bati ko lang ng quick shoutout si John Rox Grace watching from Italy, si Jmar, si Kenneth Alfonso watching from San Mateo Rizal po. Sabi ni Janil Mitra, elementary pala ako, naririnig ko na sa TV na commentator si Sir Dean. At ayan, age reveal daw. Dean Quinito, okay, let's go to the next World Championship fight. Actually, mauna yung kay this IBF champion kay Mark Quarto.
Duran versus Mark Quarto.
Yeah.
I think that will be
February 8th, 9th?
I have to look at the schedule again. That's going to happen in I think it's going to happen in is it General Santos City or Digos? I really have to check again.
Yeah.
But that will be a rematch between Taduran at saka si Quarto.
Yeah.
For
I think that will be the
IBF.
first or second week of February. I forgot the date exactly as well, Dean. But we're also looking at, of course, Jerwin Ancajas defending his title for the 10th time. Okay?
Yep.
Against Fernando Daniel Martinez, undefeated Olympian from Argentina. Now, Dean, can I just say this? Before this, dapat Kasuto Ioka yung makakalaban ni Jerwin. I really think Kasuto Ioka dodged a bullet here because I really think Jerwin Ancajas is going to beat this guy. And he, because of COVID, he gets to hold this title a lot longer, no? Dun sa yung Kasuto Ioka. But now we're here, and thanks to Sean Gibbons, hindi naman nasayang yung pagpunta ni Jerwin Ancajas sa US kasi makakakuha siya ng another title defense against Fernando Martinez. Din, ano bang alam natin dito sa unbeaten Fernando Martinez na to?
Well, this guy is a brawler. He's an Olympian, as you mentioned. He's undefeated. Doesn't have too much experience behind him, and he'll be arriving in Las Vegas in about 2 weeks. But he already has his U.S. visa, so no problem for Martinez to get to the U.S. No? I think this will be an easy defense for Ancajas. I think Martinez is tailor-made for Jerwin. No? He's an in-your-face type of fighter na hindi umaatras. So nandun lang siya sa harap ng kalaban niya. No? And, for Jerwin, this is a perfect opportunity for him to throw his combinations and to show what he's been training so hard for. So I think it's going to be a great title defense for Jerwin Ancajas. He wins this, I feel, by knockout. The place has already been identified, and again, this is the first time it's being mentioned in any media platform. The fight will be held at the Cosmopolitan of Los Angeles. This is a five-star hotel, which is near the New York hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, and this is just a few blocks walking distance away from that hotel. Actually, a few blocks away, or a block or two away from the T-Mobile Arena where Manny Pacquiao fought Yordenis Ugas. Mm-hmm. So the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas will be, did I say Los Angeles earlier? Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas will be the site for the title defense of Jerwin Ancajas versus Francisco Martinez.
Oh, that's a big one.
Puma.
Oh, okay. That's a big one. I'm glad to finally hear that Jerwin Ancajas is fighting in Las Vegas, especially for his 10th title defense. Yeah.
And I'm also told that nag-usap na si Sean Gibbons at saka si Mr. Akihiko Honda of Taiken Promotions Japan. And it looks like once Jerwin disposes of Fernando Martinez, he will be going for a unification against Kazuto Ioka, probably maybe in April or May in Japan. So kung maayos na yung laban na yun, and it looks like maayos, Jerwin is not going to go home after his expected victory over Martinez. He will stay in the States to train for that Ioka fight, and after training, he will go straight from Los Angeles, where he trains at the wild card, to Tokyo, where he will fight Ioka.
Yeah. I actually agree with that as well, Dino. I've seen very little of Fernando Martinez. Actually, I've only seen of him recently nung medyo nababanggit na siya na next opponent nga ni Jerwin Ancajas. And the way I see his style, he will, fall into the traps of Jerwin Ancajas, knowing how good Ancajas is with his counters, counter right hook, the way he set up his punches and combinations. So yeah, just like you, I anticipate a huge victory for Jerwin Ancajas. Of course, 10 title defense. That's a big deal. No, he's a real good boxer. And I just really want to see him in a big fight. No, sayang medyo na-delay lang yung Kazuto Ioka. That would have been his biggest fight. No. That would have been his breakout fight. But after this, hopefully, we'll go ahead and see him in April against the Japanese champion.
I think Ancajas is well prepared for this fight. No? In fact, he was one of the sparring partners ni Magsayo.
Yeah.
Nakakatuwa nga si Mark in the run-up to the fight against Gary Russell, ayaw niya sabihin kung sino yung mga kasparing niya. And it's very rare because usually the fighters are very open as to identifying their sparring partners because they want to give credit. They want to give a little motivation to their sparring partners by saying who they are para naman malaman ng public that, wow, itong kasparing ko yung world champion or kasparing ko yung big name. But yes, Jerwin Ancajas, because he's a southpaw, was one of the sparmates of Magsayo, along with Jalen Walker, si Tokakan, Clary was also one of his sparmates, and Steve Johnson. So, pagkatapos ng laban, inamin na ni Mark Magsayo kung sino-sino yung mga kasparing niya. And yes, Jerwin Ancajas was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Din bati ko lang si Mugiwara Bruce PH. Sabi, hi po Sir James, Sir Quinito, pwede po pag-greet ng happy second anniversary REC 48. Sige, happy anniversary po sa inyo lahat. And to the more than 200 viewers watching us live right now, thank you so much for tuning in po. Guys, if you have questions for the Dean and myself, paki-type lang po yan sa chat box and later on we'll go ahead and attend to those questions. Dean, for the next one, let's go to John Real Casimero. Now, the fight between him and Paul Butler mandatory defense niya, was actually postponed. Alam na natin yung nangyari kay John Rael Casimero. He fell ill before he made it to the weigh-ins. Now, they're looking at April 13 in Liverpool, if I'm not mistaken. Pero wala
April
pang
20,
was that date again, Dean? Sorry.
April 23. April
Oh, April
23.
23. Okay, okay. Thank you for correcting me. Wala pang balita coming from Probellum. And then nung lumabas yung resolution kasi nila, ang sabi ng Probellum, I'm sorry, sabi ng WBO, bibigyan si Probellum ng 15 days to decide if they are going to promote that fight still. Ang huli ko kasing balita nung April na sinasabi na upcoming defense ni Tata ay nanggaling from Paul Butler. So do you have any info regarding that, Dean Quinito, and what's going on in the background regarding this?
Well, I've only been talking with Sean Gibbons now because he's my main source of information. It's very reputable. Alam naman natin yung connections ni Sean Gibbons. No? He's given so many opportunities for our Filipino fighters. I want to give him credit for that. He and Casimero have been exchanging texts, and it looks like
good.
Casimero will be going to the U.S., and he will be training. And Sean Gibbons saying that he will be involved in this coming defense. Remember, the WBO said that if for any reason that Casimero is not able to defend his championship against Butler in this date in Liverpool, he will be stripped. So whether he's sick, whether he can't make weight, whether he missed a flight, whatever reason, even if it's a legitimate reason, he will be stripped.
Yes.
And for me, that's a little bit of an indication that medyo hindi kumpinsido yung WBO na si Casimero was really sick, with that viral gastritis that he claimed in pulling out of the fight against Paul Butler in Dubai. We all know that he was very dehydrated in trying to make the weight. And in fact, nanggaling mismo kay GAB Chairman Mitra, no? When he said that several days before the weigh-in, Casimero was still 6 pounds over the limit. Kung pigang-piga na siya, yung 6 pounds over the limit to try to reduce in 4 or 5 days, medyo mahirap-hirap na yun. So, as far as the WBO is concerned, that fight has to happen. And Sean Gibbons told me the date of April 23rd has been penciled, and it will be in Liverpool. So, Paul Butler's home country. And from my understanding, John Riel or Tata Casimero will again be training with Memo Heredia, the guy who got him ready for Duke Micah. So, hindi kasi maganda yung experience ni Tata dun sa San Diego when he prepared for Butler in Dubai. Hindi niya nakuha yung weight and iba yung environment. Why change something that isn't broken? Maganda yung nangyari kay Casimero when he trained with Memo Heredia dati. So, ba't hindi natin ibalik yung mga magandang nangyari kay Tata? No? And I'm hoping na ganito na mangyari because lahat tayo kapwa Pilipino. We want Tata Casimero to succeed. Correct. We want him to beat the heck out of Paul Butler. And he can do it. He can knock out this guy just like he knocked out Zolani Tepe and Charlie Edwards in England. Yeah, this will be his third fight in England. Kaya niya. This guy's a road warrior. And Casimero needs to be able to defend that championship to line himself up for a possible match against Inoue. Yun talagang hinahabol ni Casimero. And that's going to be over $1 million fight. So, dapat huwag siya mag-alala. The future will be there for him. But he has to stay disciplined. He has to stay focused. And I really feel, listen to the advice of Sean Gibbons. Because Gibbons has a track record of good connections and good opportunities for Filipino fighters. Ba't siya pupunta pa sa iba? Ito, garantisado na, tested si Sean Gibbons. And I'm glad and I'm hoping that totoo ito, no? That sila ni Sean Gibbons at Casimero nagkakasundo na ulit. And
good.
We're hoping
that's good.
Yeah. We're hoping that ganun nga, no? Magkatuloy-tuloyan na itong looming partnership all over again. I'm hoping. This is again coming from Sean Gibbons' side. I have not talked to the Casimero camp, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic that the Casimero camp will realize that this is the best thing for Tata. go under Sean Gibbons, train with Memo Heredia, and then go to Liverpool to beat the heck out of Paul Butler and remain the WBO bantamweight champion.
Yeah, and that's really good news, no? The fact that they are exchanging text messages again, that the fact that they are talking. I agree ako doon kanito eh. They had some dispute if they can patch things up, then that's good for General
Yeah.
Casimero. Kasi
My
proven and tested na
understanding is
siya eh. Dun sa
they're
camp na
not
yun.
texting directly. They are using like a common friend to
Okay.
text, to send messages. So hindi sila direkta. But Sean Gibbons is very optimistic that magkakaroon ng understanding.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that General Casimiro will be under the tutelage of Memo Heredia for this one. That guy is responsible for whipping him to top shape. No,
Yep.
in
I'll
his
throw
past
you another. I'll throw you another exclusive. Memo Heredia will be training Eumir Marcial.
Yeah.
Okay. So Marcial is now in Los Angeles. He will be flying to Las Vegas to work under Memo Heredia. And sometime in March, he will be having his second professional fight. And then after that, come home to the Philippines, rejoin the national team, and prepare for the Southeast Asian Games.
Oh, okay. So we can
Okay.
expect Eumir Marcial to be in tip-top shape. Oh boy,
Yep.
kawawa naman yung mga makakatapat niya sa SEA Games sa din Quinito if that's going to be his preparation.
Kakainin niya ng buhay yung mga
Yeah.
makakalaban sa Southeast Asian Games. You can see it. And I'm wishing the best of luck for Eumir. I was not able to attend this wedding because it's difficult now under these conditions. Pero ang ginawa ko, the morning after his wedding, pumunta ako sa Pico de Loro para makipagkita kay Eumir and to give him my wedding gift. So I wanted to show him naman that total support naman kami, o ako sa kanya, that even though hindi ako nakapunta sa kanyang wedding because yun nga, maraming tao, over 150 people, nandun si Heidelin Diaz, nandun si Congressman Bumble Tolentino, but my doctor advised me to stay away from big crowds, especially at that point. No? So, pero nakapunta naman ako the morning after, nagkita kami ni Eumir. So I wish him all the best.
And we all wish him the best, and I'm very sure din Quinito that he's going to win another gold for the Philippines in the upcoming Southeast Asian Games. Now guys, if you have questions for the Dean Quinito, now is the time. Go ahead and put your questions on the chat box. We'll go ahead. We have a few more minutes left. We just have a few minutes left with Dean Quinito, and we'll go ahead and try to answer those questions. Sabi, comment ni Ruel Piamonte, Casimero dapat magpakumbaba na siya para hindi masira ang kanyang career. I think he's pertaining Dean Quinito sa naging differences nila ng MP promotions, particularly Sean Gibbons. What do you make of any reaction to that, Dean Quinito?
I agree completely. No, it's time for healing. If there were any bad feelings or misunderstanding na nangyari dati, kalimutan na natin yan. Life is too short. Especially a boxer's life is too short. Every month counts. And wag naman sanang sayangin ni Tata yung kanyang golden years in boxing. Marami pa pwede mangyari for John Riel Tata Casimero, and I'm really hoping that he gets back on track and win more championships for the Philippines. Not just fights, championships, because from bantamweight, he can move up to super bantamweight and baka abutin pa niya si Mark Magsayo sa featherweight. Kaya ni Casimero yun because the guy has a lot of suck, and this guy's got unbelievable power. By the way, kung nakikita niyo yung aking t-shirt, We Stand with Manny, I got this many, many years ago. This is not a political statement.
Okay? Baka mo pagkabala kayo campaign PR ni Manny din
I got this many, many years ago. This was actually made by Top Rank. Nung lumalaban pa si Manny for Top Rank, no, for Bob Arum. At nagpagawa sila ng mga t-shirt. Binili ko ito. $30 ito eh. Pero, it's one of the nicest t-shirts of Manny that I have. And it's very rare because this was never sold in the Philippines. I got this in the US, so I cherish this t-shirt. I stand with Manny Pacquiao. Hindi political statement yun. Hindi ko sinasabi, iboto nyo si Manny Pacquiao. Sinasabi ko lang, we stand with Manny. Because I know him, I believe in him. Okay.
Okay. Quick shout out kay Drew Pogasol. Nanonood din siya sa atin ngayon. We have some 350 viewers watching us live right now. Din Quinito. Sabi ni John Magsayo kasi Casimero talaga angas sa tao pero may talent talaga yung tao. I agree.
Mhm.
No? John I think yung talent niya goes beyond boxing eh. The way he promotes himself, he is a personality. Ako nga din Quinito, sabi ko, we need someone like him eh. To spice things up in the Philippine boxing scene, no? We're used to guys like Senator Manny, of course, very humble. You will never hear him say the things that mga sinasabi ni Casimiro. Pinakabagong champion natin, Mark Magsayo, very humble, di ba? Very humble. Jerwin Ancajas, very humble. And then you have Channel Casimiro. Who wouldn't want a guy like this, no? What do you think, Din Quinito?
Well, you're so correct, JM. No, a very colorful character si John Riel Casimero. He's a guy who's can we say out of the box. He's not cut. He's not cut in the same mold of a world champion coming from the Philippines. Nasabi mo nga, no? All of our fighters have been very, very humble fighters. Maski na si Rolando Navarrete. I don't think Rolando ever trash talked, sa kalokohan na ginawa ni Navarrete outside of the ring. I don't think he trash talked any of his opponents. Pero ito ibang klase si Casimero, no? Angas eh. But that's the way he is. You take him for what he is. I was at ringside when he fought Guillermo Rigondeaux, and I was very, very displeased. Yes, he deserved to win that fight, but I don't think the fight went the way we all thought it should have gone. I thought Casimero should have knocked out that Cuban Paluca, in the early rounds because, pinabayaan niyang tumakbo. Sa first round, I thought bumagsak na nga si Rigondeaux, hindi naman tinawagan ng referee, but nasaktan na si Rigondeaux ng first round. Kanya, naisip-isip ni Rigondeaux, teka, sandali, tatakbuhan ko na lang ito, baka mamaya may mangyari pa sa akin. But that shouldn't happen eh. If you're a good fighter, you know how to cut the ring off when you're faced by an opponent who likes to run. Kasi, it became a clown act eh. Naging parang katawaan eh. And, masama tingnan yung nangyari kay Casimero because he kept on lunging, missing badly. And, of course, si Rigondeaux was iniiwasan niya yung mga suntok ni Casimero. Hindi naman binabawian si Casimero. Hindi naman sumusuntok eh. Pero, it was such a bad sight to see one of our champions, Casimero, reduced to being like a novice. Yung bang, sige, tira, wala naman na natatama kundi hangin. I just felt that very, very poorly coached, I thought, in that fight. I thought he should have unraveled a better fight plan. And let's hope that he learns his lesson from that fight. No, Rigondeaux doesn't deserve respect for what he did. No, may balita na si Astrolabio is going to be fighting Rigondeaux in Dubai. So wala pa akong confirmation as far as that's concerned. Dapat kausapin natin si Nonoy Neri, yung namamahala kay Astrolabio, to find out if that's going to happen.
To be fair naman kay Casimero Dino, Guillermo Rigondeaux really has the style to make anyone look bad. And, anyone look bad, make himself look bad. He is the kind of fighter na nananalo na, and yet, people don't want to see him fight. Kaya nga nung after ng laban niya kay Joseph Agbego, binitawan na po siya ng HBO kasi we don't want to see this guy anymore. We are not promoting this guy. We don't want to do any business with this guy, no?
So because yan ang style ni Rigondeaux eh. And he's not a crowd drawer. He's certainly not a crowd pleaser. So if you're a promoter, ba't mo dadalhin si Rigondeaux sa card mo, no? Na ayaw ng mga tao makita. So, si Rigondeaux siguro yun, sa Dubai, pwede siyang lumaban doon. Baka meron siyang malokong promoter. Baka bumalik na lang siya sa Cuba. Baka may manood sa kanya doon. Pero alam mo, nakakahiyang tao yun si Rigondeaux. No? He fought Donaire. I thought sa kagalingan niya, he did beat Donaire. Let's face it. Bumagsak siya sa 10th round. But he deserved to win that fight. But the way he has deteriorated as a fighter, parang yung Cuban mentality, I I will hit you, but you will not hit me. Parang
Yeah.
ganon. Kung minsan, ang nangyayari, nakakalimutan ni Rigondeaux yung first part ng statement na yun, yung I will hit you. He will just remember the last part, you will not hit me. So ganun na lang.
Not get it.
Hindi siya susuntok, pero hindi mo din siya susuntukin. Ibang
Well,
klase, ibang klase.
definitely he didn't get the full memo, no, when that praise was coined. Last
Yeah.
question for you, Quinito. Sabi ni Mugiwara, Bruce PH. Okay, let's just reduce this. Sabi niya, top 10 greatest Filipino boxers of all time. This will take, time to actually explain. And siguro gawin na lang natin top 5. Din Quinito. Who is your
Wow.
top 5 greatest Filipino boxers of all time?
Okay, Manny Pacquiao definitely number 1. Number 2 is Flash Elorde. The debate is always between the two of them. But I think with all due respect to Flash Elorde for what he has done, he held the WBC Junior Lightweight Championship for
130 yeah.
over 7 years. Had a lot of successful defenses, but a lot of them were actually in the Philippines. No? So, between the two of them. But Manny Pacquiao, because of the fact that he's in the record books as the only fighter to win championships in 8 divisions. So number 1 si Pacquiao, number 2 si Elorde, number 3 has to be Donaire. Donaire is a shoo-in to be a Hall of Famer, so I think he should be up there. I think number 4 would be Luisito Espinosa. You remember he did have 8 successful defenses as a WBC featherweight champion, and he also won the WBC or WBA bantamweight championship. So he's got to be up there too. So yung 4 na yon. Yung panlima, nako, eto na. It would have to be Pancho Villa. I think Pancho Villa is revered as possibly one of the greatest world flyweight champions ever. And what he did in winning the championship at the age of 23 yata yun? Or was it 1923 when he won the championship?
Jimmy Wild, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Wild. This was at the New York Polo Grounds, and he knocked him out in the 7th round, and that was a phenomenal victory. And I've seen films of that fight, no? And si Pancho Villa was parang the precursor of Manny Pacquiao. He was flamboyant, he was colorful, and I would say precursor because before Manny Pacquiao became a born-again Christian, and before he reformed, he was as wild as Pancho Villa. Yeah. And I think credit to Manny Pacquiao that he reformed and he became the kind of man whom you look up to. But before that, even when he was a champion, medyo wild si Pacquiao, no? And against Pancho Villa. Unfortunately, Pancho Villa did not have the opportunity to reform, unlike Manny Pacquiao, because he died at the age of 25. And he was, at that point, still the world flyweight champion. He did lose his last fight to Jimmy McLarnin, but that was a non-title fight. And, a lot of people to this day are saying that si Pancho Villa was actually killed by the mafia because laki ng pustahan in that fight between Pancho Villa at si McLarnin. And Villa lost, and a lot of big-time gamblers lost a lot of money, and they took it out on Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa was had to undergo oral surgery because of an infected tooth, but he actually died of what they call Ludwig's angina, which is a condition where your larynx or your windpipe closes and strangles you, actually chokes you to death. Some people are saying that he was administered a large dose of anesthesia before the operation, and that could have killed him. So a lot of these conspiracy theories, and maybe JM, one time you can devote a show on Pancho Villa's life, because I was probably the last man to interview Pancho Villa's widow. At that point, she was like over 80 years old, and I was able to meet her. And this happened to me, oh my gosh, siguro mga 15 years ago. But I sought her out, and I was able to find her living in a shack. Her name was Gliceria Concepcion. And they were married, but Pancho Villa had died when Gliceria gave birth to their only child, si Francisco Villedo Jr., who has passed on also, no? And she also passed on. But ang dami niyang sinabi sa akin ng mga conspiracy theories at siya yung nagsabi sa akin, pinatay yung asawa ko, sabi niya. So, wow, that was
For, that's
1925.
Yeah, and that's the first time I've heard about this Din Quinito. No, throughout the years, yun nga sinasabi, namatay siya in his early 20s. Some would even blame his yung ano niya, yung ngipin niya pa nga, it's an infection, other, it's being blamed for that. But this is the very first time I've heard na meron palang parang conspiracy na he was
Mhm.
taken down by the mafia. Wow, wow. We'll go ahead and take a
That's
look
a
at that as well.
conspiracy theory, but it
Yeah.
is not proved. It is not proved. Let me just qualify that. It's just a theory. But I wrote a 10-part series on the life of Pancho Villa that was published in a Sports Weekly magazine when I was writing for that magazine many, many, many years ago. And I preserved it. Nasa akin pa. It's a 10-part series. And you know what? That could actually be the basis of a movie. Kasi, to write about or to tell the story of Pancho Villa in a movie, that would be a blockbuster. That would be amazing. And, you can, who kaya can play the part of Pancho Villa? It's got to be someone who is like in his 20s. So, hahanap tayo ng
Charismatic.
an
Someone
actor.
charismatic and naka-brush up yung buhok, Din Quinito.
Oo, someone in his 20s.
Well, Digito, and just to answer that final question from our audience, I think when we are giving list naman, it's always subjective naman, It's not written on
Mhm.
stone. So it really depends on the analyst describe the history at kung sinong ilalagay nila dyan, top one, even of all time, the likes of Bert Sugar, Teddy Atlas, magkakaiba rin sila listari because again, it's very subjective. It's not written in stone. Now, ako naman, just in my personal opinion, of course, I agree with the Did Quinito. I would give number one to Manny Pacquiao. I think there's no need to explain that anymore. Number two, I would give to Nonito Donaire for his
Mhm.
accomplishment for division champion. He's defeated the future Hall of Famers himself. Number three, and again, it's just my preference. I give to Pancho Villa because I believe that si Pancho Villa paved the way for all of this. And he's
Okay.
fought in a time, in an era wherein napakahirap mag-world champion, especially for a Filipino. When he climbs the ring, di ba, Din Quinito, sinasabi pa, sinisiguan siya, monkey, there was a lot of racism back in boxing nung time na yon, and he was a victim of that. And the way he punished Jimmy Wild, a Hall of Famer, touted as one of the hardest hitting punchers sa boxing history, that's to me is just a huge deal. That's a huge deal. Number four, I would give to Flash Elorde. Of course, huge respect. Many title defenses during this super featherweight division for some 7 years. And number five, ito hindi pa tapos ang career. Hindi po kasi mahirap din no? Pag hindi pa tapos ang career, ang hirap pa siya i-rate because the story is not yet concluded. But number five, maybe I would say it's a toss between Peñalosa, Don Nietes, or Luisito Espinosa. Anywho, I would not complain. And again, that's just me, no? So yeah, did you know any
Well,
parting words? Thank you
as a
so much.
footnote,
Yeah.
as a footnote on Pancho Villa, in his heyday, um, before he got married, he was escorting some of the most beautiful Hollywood stars. He would love to dress in three-piece suits, very dapper si Pancho Villa. Bata pa siya noon, 23 years old, no? And yung mga kadate niya, mas patangkad sa kanya, mga blonde, and and he would go to the racetracks in Saratoga, New York. So he was a gambler. He would go to gamble in racetracks, ganon. So he lived a very wild life. Yes, he was called a monkey and all those mga racist remarks in the ring, but outside of the ring, he was embraced as a hero. He was embraced as a celebrity in the U.S. and rightfully so because he enthralled the world when he knocked out Jimmy Wild. So
Yeah.
anyway, hindi tayo nagkakatalo sa listahan natin sa top 5. I think we got well, you did say that Luisito Espinosa is a contender for yours. Si Donnie Nietes would make it in my top 10 list, not in the top 5. I think top 5 is reserved for those fighters whom I mentioned. And that's a revered cast. And si Luisito Espinosa, for what he did, two division world champion, and the longevity of his reign as a featherweight champion, um, he has certainly acquitted himself ako nga, I would feel that Espinosa should be a Hall of Famer as well. But it's up for discussion, and I'm so happy that we had this talk,
Question.
JM, para malaman natin kung ano yung naiisip natin yung top 5 Filipino fighters of all time.
Well, you know what, Quinito, after everything that I've learned today regarding sa life of Pancho Villa, well, wow, what a movie it would be, no? Kung makakuha nga to, if they will make a movie out of his life, and of course with your guidance and with the stories that you've written, over for Pancho Villa, that's definitely a movie na papanoorin ng bansa Pilipinas. Did Quinito, do you have any parting words to our 400 audience watching us live right now?
Well, JM, again, as I mentioned earlier, thank you for this invitation. I'm always excited pag ang pinag-uusapan natin boxing. It's something that's a passion for both of us. I'd also like to thank yung mga viewers mo, sa lahat ng mga nanonood. Maraming salamat at pinagbigyan mo kami na you guys stayed on to listen to what I have to say. Whether you agree or disagree, maraming salamat for at least listening. And, we just have to respect each other's opinions and views. Sometimes I can be opinionated, but, so long as we're all fans, we're all for the Philippines, we're all for Filipino boxers, let's all be together, and let's all support our Filipino boxers. And thank you very much. And also, JM, for all the fans who are listening in or viewing, I do have a website called Play It Right TV, and there you can see, you can access 24/7 on YouTube and Facebook all the interviews we've had with Mark Magsayo. Just about an hour and a half after his fight, we had him sit down for 30 minutes for a live interview. We've had Eliza Valdez, Justin Brownlee. So any sport, EJ Obiena, all the controversial issues, doon natin maririnig sa ating Play It Right TV on YouTube and Facebook. So follow us there, and let's enjoy what makes us happy in life, sports.
Speaking of late, right, I was just watching your channel, din Quinito, earlier. Nakita ko may interview ko kay Alex Ayala. So I was watching that, listening to it. Of course, with the respected, renowned Miss Diane Castillo. So guys, sa lahat po nanonood sa atin ngayon, to all the viewers, please subscribe and visit Din Quinito's channel. And Din Quinito, as always, it's an honor to have you here on the program. Ako and many of our audience, of course, marami na namang natutunan sa iyo. And can't wait to have you back till the next sparring sessions, Din Quinito. Maraming salamat
anytime,
po.
Anytime. I'm just so sorry, JM, that I wasn't able to sit down with you and talk about the Magsayo-Russell fight before the actual event, because, I got hit by COVID in Batangas. My whole family, we were actually 15 in our Batangas home. 11 of us tested positive, but luckily in 3 to 5 days, nawala na yung mga symptoms namin, and we didn't need extra care. All we did was take our medicine and vitamins. So we're okay now. But I was rather out of commission for those times that you invited me, JM. But I'm sure that next time you send an invitation, just like this one, I'll be ready to rumble.
Yeah, all good din Quinito. You know what? I'm just glad that you and your family is all good now. So maraming salamat po sa oras.
Thank you again.
Good night, guys.
Good.